Hey guys, it's Lots, and today I wanted to talk about nostalgia and why I think everyone is so obsessed with it nowadays. Nostalgia has always been a thing before. I'm not acting like it's this new concept. I mean, I think of like movies in the 70s like American Graffiti and Grease, which were based in the 50s, and I'm sure people were nostalgic about the 50s during that time. But I feel like nowadays, nostalgia is such a big factor in pop culture. I mean, this YouTube channel alone is based on nostalgia. We're literally playing old Call of Duty games. But even in the mainstream media, movies, music, TV shows, video games are all leaning into nostalgia to try to get people hooked onto their product. And even social media trends. I mean, I always see people talking about digital cameras now, which were a big thing in like the 2000s, early 2010s. Everyone has one nowadays, it seems. And all of this is rooted in nostalgia. Now, I think the most obvious answer, which is definitely a factor in it as to why people are so obsessed with nostalgia, is because it reminds them of a simpler time. It reminds them of their childhood, when they were younger, when things weren't as stressful as they are today. But I think there's also another reason as to why nostalgia is such a big factor today, and that is because we lost monoculture. Now, if you don't know what monoculture is, according to Wikipedia, which is the most reliable source, monoculture is a concept in popular culture studies in which facets of popular culture are experienced by everyone at once, either globally or nationally. In other words, big things like music, movies, TV shows, video games, and more that are experienced by a large group of people at the same time. And I'm here to say that monoculture has completely gone out the window and it's not existent anymore, and that's a big reason as to why nostalgia is so big. To show an example and to prove that this doesn't exist anymore, here's the Billboard Top 10 songs from this week. How many of these songs do you actually know or have heard of the artist? For me, I think there's about 5, and the only reason why I know these songs is because when my mom's in the car, she still listens to the radio, and these are the songs that are playing. Outside of that, I would have never heard most of these songs before. Compare that to the Billboard Top 10 songs from this week in 2012, and I know every single song on this list, and I feel like most people do, and if you haven't, you might know the artist, or if I at least play a snippet of the song, you would have heard about it. What's super interesting about this is the number one song right now is Ordinary by Alex Warren. Have you guys ever heard this song before or know who Alex Warren is? Again, outside of listening to the song in my mom's car on the radio, I don't think I would have ever heard this song in my life before. And I don't even know if anyone really knows who Alex Warren is. I know him from TikTok like 5 years ago. I know he was a big TikToker. But I feel like even then, no one knows who this guy is. Compare that to Call Me Maybe by Carly Rae Jepsen. Now, Carly Rae Jepsen, I don't know if she's as big of a star as she was when this song came out, but I feel like a lot of people know the song Call Me Maybe. I know I can pretty much sing that whole song by heart. It's a great song. But these 10 songs from 2012, I feel like at least the majority of people in my generation at least, and even I think my parents would know most of these songs, or at least recognize them if they played. And what I find super interesting and kind of proves this point is whenever I go out to a bar or a club, they're playing music from before like 2016, which I love. I listen to that music constantly already. But I feel like the reason why they play that is because everyone knows those songs. And yes, every so often they'll throw in a modern song that's really big, Drake, Kendrick, a bunch of that kind of stuff gets played also. But I feel like so many of these big songs they play in the clubs or bars are from this era, or I shouldn't say just the 2000s, but just pre like 2016, I feel like. And that's because we were all listening to those songs at the same time when they came out. And I think we all know the reason why we're all listening to different music now, and that's because no one's listening to the radio anymore besides my mom and dad. Everyone's listening to their own music on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever other streaming service you're using, and that pretty much with the algorithms and all that is making recommendations to you that no one else probably has. I mean, obviously there are popular songs, right? I'm not acting like no one knows, Not Like Us by Kendrick or Nokia by Drake. Those are pretty big songs. But those I feel like are pretty rare, especially compared to, what the charts were 10 years ago. And we could apply the same thing to TV shows and music. I mean, I know for my childhood, the shows that I was watching were on Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, and Disney Channel, and that's what most kids around my age were watching during the 2000s. And I was going to school talking about the latest episode of iCarly, Victorious, Drake and Josh, all that. And even someone you wouldn't even talk to in school would know what you're talking about, or at least have heard of the show before. And the same thing can be said about TV shows for adults. I always hear The Office, Friends, Full House, How I Met Your Mother. All these great sitcoms were made, before this era of streaming, and they're still talked about today. And everyone was watching those shows as they were coming out, and everyone was talking about them. What shows nowadays kind of have that effect? I think shows more than movies are kind of more popular, I think. And the shows that I think of are like Stranger Things, Euphoria. I haven't watched this show personally, but I hear a lot about it, like The White Lotus. And I know Love Island is huge right now. But I feel like it's the same thing where it's kind of rare when a show really gets to a mainstream audience where everyone has at least heard of the name before. Same thing with movies. I mean, you think of classic movies that everyone has at least heard of before. You may not have seen it, but you know the name, like Back to the Future, Jurassic Park, Toy Story, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. All those movies are recognized just by the name. What movies nowadays are really having that effect? Maybe Marvel movies? Dune? Avatar? I don't know. Like, I feel like it's also super rare for movies to really pop off like they used to, unless they're tied to a franchise or something from the past. And that's why I think nostalgia is such a big factor today, because everyone that experienced these songs, movies, and TV shows were all experiencing it together, and it made a sense of community. And that's why all these things do really, really well. I mean, I think of just this summer, right? They had a Lilo and Stitch remake that did well. How to Train Your Dragon live action remake did really well. This upcoming month, we have Jurassic World, which I'm sure is going to do well. I Know What You Did Last Summer, which I'm not sure if it's going to do super well, being honest. But again, I'm sure they're hoping it's going to do well because it's based on a IP from the 90s. So that's why I think nostalgia is so big right now, because monoculture allowed you to talk to pretty much anyone and they would know what you're talking about. I feel like nowadays when I'm having a conversation with someone, I want to talk about the shows, movies, and music that I'm listening to, but I don't know if this person has even heard of this person before, this movie or this song, whatever it is. And yeah, it could make for an interesting conversation to learn from different people. Maybe you get recommendations, which is a good thing, but I feel like you're missing kind of that bond that brings people together in a way. So where are we today? I saw this comment on a video talking about monoculture, and they used the term polyculture, which, makes sense. And that's pretty much where we're at now, where there's so many different forms of media we're consuming that there isn't really a mainstream thing anymore. I mean, with everything from Spotify, Apple Music, all the TV and movie streaming services, and even on social media like YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. There's so many different forms of content that you would not have found if monoculture was still existing today, which could definitely be a pro. I mean, you're able to find communities that are specific to your interests, and you don't have to consume any media that you're not interested in at all. But on the other hand, there's definitely some drawbacks to that where I feel like it does make us more divided. I mean, if you're just not showing any interest in anything that's not in your interests on your social media pages because of the algorithm, it could kind of keep you in the tunnel, and I feel like that's a big reason with like politics where people are just focused on what they believe in and they're not taking any other side into account because all they see on their social media accounts is their side. I feel like it's also hard to make friends in person unless you're going to like specific events, right? Like say you're just at like a bar or you're at a coffee shop or you're just in school. I feel like it'd be more difficult to make friends because there's so many different things that people are doing nowadays and consuming different kind of interests and media that could be difficult to kind of bond over something specific. I think it's easier on the internet because you're able to search out these communities. I mean, you could literally look up any interest on the internet and you're bound to find some sort of community that has the same interest in you, which is a great thing. But I feel like in person, it doesn't really translate as well unless you're going to like a Comic-Con or like a weightlifting class or whatever specific interest you're in. But I feel like if you're in a bar or a coffee shop, like, I don't know about you guys, but I kind of find it hard to talk to people about stuff just because it's like, okay, I don't know what to talk about because there really isn't any big thing that's going on most of the time. Compared to back then where you could talk about like, oh, did you see the latest episode of this? Or, oh, did you hear this new song? Like, oh my God, it's so good. And I also feel like it makes you not open to other forms of media. I mean, I'm not saying that there's no original stuff that comes out nowadays, especially in the movies. That's a big complaint I hear that like, oh, everything nowadays is a remake or a reboot or a sequel, which, a lot of it is. I'm not saying that it's not, but there's also so many other movies and TV shows that are original that people, I don't think, just give any time of day to. I remember a couple years ago, the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once came out, and I saw it like probably opening weekend just because me and my friends are super into movies and we pretty much see every movie that comes out into the theater. And when that movie came out and we saw it, we thought this was one of the best movies we had ever seen. And it was crazy how that actually, led to people actually going to see it. Because I feel like a couple weeks later after we saw it, everyone was talking about this movie, and that led to it winning Best Picture at the Oscar, which I was not expecting at all. But I feel like with this culture that we have right now, where there's so many options to consume different forms of media, people are not likely to go see that movie. And I feel like that movie will honestly kind of be forgotten in time. I don't know. Maybe it won't, but that's just a feeling I have. And even with Call of Duty, I mean, that's what we're playing on this channel. I think Black Ops 7 is being like advertised, or it's going to be like a Black Ops 2 remake or a sequel, and they're going to do like a Modern Warfare thing that they did a couple years ago where they just bring back a bunch of Black Ops 2 maps, which is cool. I mean, a bunch of people have been asking for a Black Ops 2 remaster, but it's just the same thing where they're just relying on old stuff from the past. And I remember Fortnite OG was big, that was a huge thing where they brought back the original map. And Fortnite was one of those things where, honestly, in recent years, I feel like that was one of the last times where everyone was on Fortnite. Everyone was on the game talking about it. And I feel like we haven't had something like that in a while. I mean, maybe you could say like Warzone, but I wasn't super into Warzone. I feel like it didn't really have that same impact as Fortnite did. And I feel like a big reason as to why people talk about Prime Fortnite and why it was so good was because everyone was on the game. You'd go to school and everyone was talking about it. Oh, you go to school and you could talk to pretty much anyone, even if you weren't even friends with them. If they were in a different group than you, like you could bond over the fact that Fortnite was the most popular game at the time. And I kind of miss that. I feel like everyone's kind of in their own little segments and there's nothing really that brings everyone together. Now, to wrap this up, I'm just curious as to what we'll be nostalgic for in 20 years, because I genuinely don't really know. I think it will be one of those things where there's going to be different groups of people that are nostalgic for different things, and there's not really going to be many things that, the vast majority of people in our generation are super nostalgic for, unless it's from stuff before, like, 2016. And I already see stuff on TikTok all the time being like, oh, I miss 2022, I miss 2020. But I don't think it will have that same effect as stuff from like the 2000s and early 2010s. I don't know. Maybe I'll be wrong. But I just want to know, like, what will people be nostalgic for? Because I feel like so many things nowadays are just rooted in stuff that were made 20 years ago. So are we being nostalgic for stuff that is already nostalgic nowadays? Like, I don't know. It's confusing. But I think that's going to do it for this video. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Do you guys think monoculture was better, or do you prefer where we're at now with polyculture? Because there's definitely pros and cons to each. And I also want to know, what do you guys think people will be nostalgic for in 20 years? Because I'm very curious, and then who knows, maybe in 20 years we'll be able to look at the comments and see if we're right. But yeah, that's going to do it. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did enjoy, please consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.